Hi, everyone. I'm Shelley Lyle.
And I'm Jessica Francis.
And welcome to Voices from the Field, a podcast brought to you by the Department of Sport Management at the University of Florida. This podcast was created to share the career journeys of sport industry professionals. Our hope is that you will learn the ins and outs of different sport industry professions. We're excited to be with all of you this week and with our special guest, Alidu Salifu, legal counsel for the U.S. Soccer Federation.
Alidu has a master's from Columbia University and a master's in public administration and a Juris Doctorate from the University of North Dakota. He's worked in marketing and strategy departments for MLS teams, FC Harlem, and the New York Red Bulls. He moved into the United States Army Reserve, where he served as a logistics officer before stepping into a strategic partner role for Underdog Ventures and associate counsel, or JAG, for the U.S. Army Reserves. Alidu is currently serving part-time as a JAG and full-time as legal counsel for the U.S. Soccer Federation. We are so excited to have him on the podcast with us today. So welcome, Alidu.
Hey, thank you, Jess. Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate the very kind introduction.
Yeah, we're so excited for you to be with us. Would love to hear about your, we heard a little bit about your career journey, but we'd love to hear a few more details about that, maybe starting when you were in university and how you knew you wanted to work in sports.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, so I'm sure telling from my accent, you can tell I'm from somewhere in Africa. So I grew up in Ghana and wound up coming to the States for my final year of high school, and then did college in North Dakota. And, dating back, I'd always, had an interest in working in sports, but coming from my background in Ghana, so it was either, being a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. And more so coming to the States, how do you call your parents and say, hey, you know what, I want to work in sport. They're like, do you want to be a coach? Do you want to be a player? Like, what's going on here? So I'd always had that interest, but in college, I kind of put that on a pause, shelved that, and so went and I had my undergrad in economics. Couldn't pursue a sports management degree right off the bat, and then thought through things, and by then I'd started applying to some sports jobs whilst in college. Never had any luck, there. And then post college, did some time in the military, and had always had this bag of wanting to get into sports. And then post the military, said, hey, law school might be the route to take to help give me a chance into sports. And things kind of worked out, and I'm here today. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And I would love to know, one thing we didn't mention in your kind of summary was about your experience in reffing and futsal and all of those things. So I'm just really wondering, were you doing all of those licenses and certificates along with your time serving in the military? And were you kind of always having that, both working in sports and working for the military?
Yeah. So, yeah. And thank you for that question. Yeah. So, I always, knew I wanted to, get into sports. And once I couldn't, do it on a full-time basis, I took any and every opportunity where I could do it as a part-time, on a part-time basis, or volunteer, whatever it was. So I'll, while I was in the military, active duty, got my license to referee, to coach, and, and soccer was, has been my favorite sport. So I kind of narrowed there, but I always took opportunities where I could do things related to the sport, even though I wasn't working in full-time or didn't have the opportunity to. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, and it makes it to me, it makes a lot of sense too, that you're able to do both, right? And then now you're pivoting, which makes it an easier pivot back into the sports world, because you've always been maintaining some foot in that world the whole time.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And in my pivot, these things played a key role, because people could tell, over the years, there's been some consistency. You've been having a full-time job doing something, different, but you've, always had, sports somewhere in the background, and you kind of told the story that, hey, this is someone who is very, committed, devoted, and really wants to be in the industry. So that really helped.
Yeah, very cool. And when it comes to your daily job, what are some of the duties you do for the U.S. Soccer Federation? And what are some things you feel like students maybe wouldn't know that comes with your job with them?
Yeah. So on a, no, they being in-house, counsel is more like a firefighter job where, no day is the same. But the main things I do on a daily is drafting contracts, negotiating, contracts, and doing interpretation of contracts. So those are, are standard where every day out, in some way, shape, or form deal with a contract. So and have to interpret a contract that I've previously, drafted. So those are standard. In terms of things that I'll, do that students to be surprised, about is a lot of, I would like to call it relationship building, or even business development, in the sense of in negotiating these big contracts on behalf of US Soccer, we deal with other lawyers on the other side of these deals. So it really, I've come to find that it really pays to get to know these these attorneys on the other side. It's a small industry. Getting to know them helps with deal flow. You build a relationship outside of the paper, and that helps things move much faster than you think. So making time, and I do put time on my schedule to get to know other attorneys working at brands, at other leagues, and that kind of stuff. And my superiors do understand that it's a very important part of the role. So yeah.
That's
yeah,
great.
very cool. We talked about, just the importance of relationship building in the sports industry as a whole. And I think that goes to what you've just named, and a good reminder, like you might be in one field of sports in the law specifically, but those even working with teams, working in-house, working front office, all those places, and I think the longer I'm in the industry, the more I see the advantage, like you said, of just having the connections, and not in a way that's like, oh, connections to get a job. It's more like, who are you going to call for a favor? And there's a real place for that in sports, whether it's right or wrong. It's not really, but that it exists and having relationships across the board, not just in one sector of the industry.
100%.
And then one quick follow-up is, what's your favorite part of the job? And then what's one thing you find challenging?
Yeah, so my favorite part of the job is so today we announced a multi-year deal with Marriott, which went out, which really excited me. Back in the day, I knew about these things, always just to keep up to date, on the deals that we're going through, and just seeing these come to life, and and sometimes when these partners activate, and I see the impact in the communities, this just brings joy to me. So this is one of the main things that really about it. In terms of the challenging part of the job, I would say it's just usually it's the one of things that negatives are associated with sports just in general. Sometimes you would hire a coach where the public is not interested, or not doesn't feel that was the right decision, and you go onto social media and see the kind of abuse that that goes on, and even sometimes directed at us here at the federation. So I'll say those moments I find challenging, and that's part of the job, as they'll say.
How cool, this partnership that you all just put out there. That's so cool. I have a question about how you've evolved as a leader, and I'm really interested to hear your answer, since you have such an extensive background in so many different areas. So how would you say that you've evolved as a leader in the industry?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I'll say for me, how I've approached it is just kind of have looked up to those ahead of me who have done extremely well, and try to connect with them to learn what they've done, steps they've taken along the way, and not exactly copy what they've done, but see how that parts of that I could adapt those to my career journey. So for example, being um even though I had a law degree, my first role was at a marketing agency where I was doing some consulting and doing some client management. And prior to this, I had connected with a few people, and they had told me who were successful in sports, and they had told me, hey, sales is a good thing to learn. And even for me as a lawyer, I took that and said, hey, getting to know a little bit of sales, being able to manage clients, that would be a good thing. So for me, it's learning from those who have led the way and are doing well, and learning from the best. And also the second thing would be just looking internally about in terms of my core traits and where my strengths are, and really leaning on my strengths and bringing them to bear in my job. I had someone said, hey, you come from the military, there are core strengths there. Don't look down on your strengths. You bring something to the table, and you'd see that has helped me a lot. But you'd see sometimes there are a lot of people who get maybe feel being different, or their strengths not being the same as others. They may see that as a drawback. But just really looking to your uniqueness, your strengths, and bringing them to bear, and it'll surprise many how those are really appreciated in organizations.
I really love that. And that's something that we talk about to our students, just how important it is to find that balance. I think sometimes students and people just in general and naturally want to go for the glamorous jobs and just whatever they've seen or whatever they're familiar with. But there's something really special when you can match your strengths to your work. And so I really love that comment that you made. But with that, as you started out in your career, what's one thing you wish you had known when you were just getting started?
Yeah. One thing I wish I had known from the start would be, knowing that the sports, that the sports industry was very broad, and wide. I started my career soccer. So it was soccer or nothing for me. It was, and looking back, I think if I had known that, it would have helped me, quite a bit, and it's you know, I learned that later in my career, so that helped. I think having that, if I had that broad mindset from the start, maybe I would have it would have opened more opportunities, for me starting out, but keeping it very narrow at the beginning, I think made it more difficult to break in, and quite frankly see other opportunities that were around me that I could have taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's great. That's great insight. Did you ever experience a career setback? And I'm I'm fascinated by you, so I'm enjoying this, but I'm just interested to know, have you ever experienced a career setback, and then kind of how did you handle that?
Yeah, so I'll say, and so just post college, I had wanted, and even before college, I had wanted to get into sport, into soccer, and I right about the time I was graduating from college, I'd heard about these sports management programs, and so post college, I was like, hey, I was going to apply to one of these, and this was going to give me the major break into sports, and and that didn't quite happen. I wouldn't name the program, but I applied, and did not get a positive response, and that was for me as someone who had graduated from college. That was, I'll say, my first failure in my attempt to get, first real failure in my attempt to get into sports. And for me, and that's almost now counting 10 years ago. And I would say I just kept, trying, and I, took different, routes, had to end up in the military, had to go through law school, but, just keeping the focus on having a North Star, helped me. And I just said, hey, I'll, keep going, keep doing what, I need to do, get those skills. And eventually, if it's supposed to happen, and it would happen with all these things that's, that these building blocks I'm putting together. So yeah, I'll say just keeping one foot in front of, the other along the way just was the way to go about this challenge.
Love that.
That's great. It's helpful too for our, we have a lot of students in our grad program, our online grad program, who are different ages, right? And who have different starts to their career, and not necessarily all specifically sports. And they have great work experience, but, getting into the industry can be challenging too when you're making that change. But good encouragement for them to hear your story and your experience of like, it can happen, but it is going to take work, and you are going to know you have to be resilient for it to be patient in the waiting, for sure. And so along the way, what were some of the best resources that helped you throughout your career journey?
So I'll say a big thing was podcasts. I know I've spoken about people a lot. My podcasts were great for me. So it's good to be on a podcast now. But I would listen to podcasts and listen to. And it was just great hearing from people who had, done, been in the industry, talk about their careers, offer advice. And what I would do, quite frankly, at that point would be, if genuinely someone really a message resonated with me, out, shoot a person a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, I heard this, on the podcast, listen to you. And I thought this XYZ was great. Would love to connect. Sometimes that would end up in a chat, in a conversation, a 15 minutes, coffee chat. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it will take, years after, and we would end up meeting at an event and be like, oh, this, we connected once and we spoke, and yeah, I'd love to hear more about it. And, so podcasts have been a great resource. I still listen to podcasts, and those have been really great over the years.
Awesome. And do you have one or two you could share with our audience on what you listen to regularly?
Yeah, so I do listen to, being a Columbia grad. There's a sports management podcast called The Cusp Show, which I listen to, and now every morning I listen to the Buzzcast. It's on SBJ. Podcast, which goes just a 360 on the sports industry, what's going on, quick. I'll listen to that on my commute to work, and now now I have VFTF as well, so we'll add that to the list.
Well, shout out, love that. Awesome. And then going into people who've been influential to you, who are 2 or 3 people that you feel like have really heavily impacted your career?
Yeah, so I'll say the first person, without a doubt, is David Wright. And he's based out of Florida. He's the chief commercial officer at US Soccer. Has been a sponsor within the organization, who has really just helped me understand and the lay of the land of soccer and the federation, and has been someone who would offer advice, and also, correction when needed, and say, hey, this is, something you're doing, right. There's something you're doing wrong. This is how you can improve. And just like a very good person, a very good leader. I'll say I have a professor at Columbia, Professor Richardson, who was just very, very helpful while I was in college and out of college, and would still send me an email from time to time. Hey, how you doing? How things are, US Soccer? Is there any way I can help? What are you working on? Let's connect. And I do thing to him. And I'll say the third is someone that I just admire, but don't really have a close relationship with, Sunil Gulati, who was former president at US Soccer. Was just a soccer management, great, who had a long stint at FIFA, here at US Soccer and at CONCACAF, and he's just someone, a very inspirational person, who teaches at Colombia as well now. So I'll say those three three people I do admire and have been very, very helpful in my career journey.
Love that. Shifting gears just a little bit, how have you seen the industry change, and what do you think new trends will pop up for the U.S. Soccer Federation over the next couple of years? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, so I'll say over the last few years, just looking at how soccer has grown and continues to grow, I think we are just going to see, and not because I'm working here at the federation, but we are going to see astronomical growth in soccer over the next few years. We have the World Cup coming in 2 years. We have the Gold Cup, next year. We have the FIFA Club World Cup coming here next year. We are bidding for the Women's World Cup in 2027. We'll hear about the results later this year, and then the Olympics in 2028. So there's a huge runway, for us to really get soccer to where we think it's supposed to be. So I'm looking at this real astronomical growth of the soccer economy here in the States, and my hope in terms of trends is seeing how it'll trickle down to the cost of playing soccer for kids. So that's I'm very hopeful that we'll see a trend of lower costs for playing soccer across the states. And then I'll say the second is with that growth comes with a level of sophistication at the federation level, at the league level. So we've soccer has been lagging behind in terms of that sophistication, but with that amount of growth, I think there'll be sophistication in our media business. You've seen, the NFL and the NBA do a lot of sophisticated things, which we are quite frankly not there yet. But with this level of growth, would quite frankly need to up our game in the sophistication of our media business, whether and now and trends like AI, things like that, think through how those and we have business leaders who are also thinking about that, and we are seeing that in our hiring. There's with innovation, people in innovation are coming on. That would have been really not a thing for US Soccer Federation in the past few years. So really, I can see those two things I see coming along.
And I don't want to interrupt too much here, but I do want to just say some of the things we haven't named is you stepping into your role with Soccer Federation in the midst of a really interesting time for them, in my opinion. I mean, from the women's space of soccer to the World Cups and FIFA and European stars coming our direction, to what will happen in the future with the Saudi Arabia League, and the future is in the global just expanse of the sport and sports in general. Like, you are in a really, really cool, unique, and I'm sure incredibly challenging space right now, because I feel like it's one of those things where every day could change, like new things are happening so fast. So just want to throw that out there, because I feel like we haven't really talked about what the timing of you stepping into your current role.
I agree 100%. Yeah. I when I first landed the job, a friend told me, it's like, wow, for a soccer guy, what a time to be alive. And I was quite humbled by that. But yeah, it's a great time, for the sport and all that's going on, around the sport.
Yeah, you're a part of history, really. It's
Yeah,
being
yeah,
made right now. It's being
yeah,
written.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really cool. And then for students who are maybe interested in getting to the position that you're in, or even any of your past positions, what advice would you have for them to prepare themselves?
Yeah, I'll say first off, the building a skill set, because I think just level sets, and you should be able to do a job, or do the job that you apply for. So just building a skill set, and refining that skill. So when I graduated college, and I know I had this and I was trying to get into sport, and my first attempt didn't work out. I got this advice about, hey, so now, you are trying to get into sports. What is your skill set? What is are you a lecturer? Are you an accountant? Are you a financial analyst? Are you a marketer? And at that point, I hadn't really defined, my skill set and what I was bringing to the table. And, that really, helped me. And so when I, went to law school, and, I was applying for jobs, I knew, this was my, defined role. This was my skill set. This is the job, I could do. And then at least, and that would even, that would be a good conversation, starter, right off the bat. But if you don't, have that down, right away, I think it's a challenge. So that would be my advice. One advice to students, really, narrow that, really nail down that skill set and what you are bringing to the table in terms of the role.
Awesome. And then it's kind of similar vein. What is important for students who want to get into sports law specifically? Any suggestions for them? Maybe whether it's getting internships or it's pursuing certain universities for sport law or things like that. Any suggestions you can provide there?
Yeah. So I'll say, if just in terms of the way I'm seeing the industry going in sports law, if you are a law student, or thinking about it in general, things like privacy law is something that, if you're looking at getting into sports law and having an interest in that, that's great, because a lot of the sports teams are looking for people, lawyers who are into privacy, and you don't get that often. Same tax, have a background in tax as well, is also a good one. And also, we are seeing a lot of litigation around antitrust, so that's also an area to also look at, if you're interested, and do go to law school. So I'd say um, sports law is very small. So for in addition to these fields that I've mentioned, which could give a student a head start, I'll just say it may also be worth looking into other areas of the business, which are law adjacent, whether it's in compliance, or even sitting within a business team where you deal with the contracts, and you work closely with the lawyers. So it may not directly be that law role, but will give you exposure to that, and it could lead to that. So, and I'll say, um, there are different routes into sports law. So I can't really go be very narrow on what. There are some who just go to law school, go the big law route, do big law for a number of years, get into sports. Some would go straight out of law school into sports. Some would go the brand side, work for a MasterCard, work for you know, a Chipotle, and then end up, on the property side. So I'll, say, first off, do get good grades, get into law school, and keep your options open, while gathering the necessary experience to reach that North Star.
Awesome. No, that's really helpful. I mean, even just your insights into what's needed in law, so students can hear about what what people in the industry are looking for is awesome. And so kind of going into your own story, your own experiences, I'm curious, what are some things for you that have kept you healthy in a really high-paced, high-demand environment?
Yeah, so it's very, very, very interesting. I I do, with my military background, I do, like to, work out, a lot. I stay close to my family, especially my mom. She's like, "Hey, are you eating well? Are you?" She keeps me on my toes. So I'll say those, those two things, just working out, staying close to family and friends as well. So that helps. And I like to, do things outside of, just sports and that kind of thing to help. Yeah.
Have that balance, that
Yeah.
work-life balance that they talk about. So for our students who are maybe getting ready to graduate and enter the workforce, what qualifications do you look for when hiring? What suggestions do you have for students as they're kind of entering the field?
Yeah. So I look for people who have a diverse skill set, people who have done, you know many many things, so have not just been, you know just very narrow in their career trajectory. I look for people and this will usually come out in the interview phase, by people who have had some form of failure, setback, and to see how they've really, bounced back from that. It's we don't just look for people who have had a smooth sailing, and so really, look out for, for those things, and people who just have shown, people who also have one of my favorite questions is, what drives you, and that will give you a good sense of who the person is, and how the person would fit into the group here. So
I think that's so powerful what you said, especially about the failure. I think, when we're having career counseling sessions and we're talking through interview questions. And then well, I don't know about Shelly, but when I hear them say, well, I'm a perfectionist, when it's like, what's something you've struggled with, or what's something that's maybe not your strength? And they're like, I'm a perfectionist, but it's like, is that a bad thing? But I do think, and the research shows that it's more powerful and impactful to say, like you said, maybe there was a time that I messed up and this is what I learned from it. Like, maybe time management isn't my strength, but this is what I've done to kind of work on that. And so we don't have to be perfect. I think that there's this idea that everybody is just put together and all of that, and it's just not true. It's really more important to see how you bounce back, because everybody will fall at some point. So that really resonated with me. For our students who want to connect with you, what is the best way that they should do that? Is it LinkedIn? Is it through email? How should our students connect with you?
yeah, I'll say LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn will be the best way. And my name, Alidu Salifu. That's look me up on LinkedIn, and that'll be the best way. I'm very, very responsive on there, and I spend a lot of time, maybe too much time, on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, hopefully they will reach out. That's all of our questions, but we always like to have a little fun at the end of our show and do a rapid fire Q&A that Shelly will lead for us.
Yes, so this is our fire away question time. So it's a great way to get to know you a little bit better with a little less structure. So I'm going to put a timer on my phone for 1 minute. And when I say start, we'll go into questions so you can answer. We'll see how many you get through, but just answer whatever comes to the top of your head. You don't have to overthink it. If you want to pass, you can pass, and we'll just see how many you get through.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Sounds good.
All right. And we will begin. Okay, so when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A lawyer,
Favorite sport to play?
soccer.
What's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Oh man, it was one of a soccer player's haircut where I had like a star on the side of my head, and I got in trouble for that. So yeah.
Okay, name 2 daily habits.
Playing Sudoku, listen to podcasts.
Yep. Favorite zoo animal?
Lion.
First job.
I worked at Barnes and Noble as a bookseller. So.
Nice. Mountains or beaches? Which do you prefer?
Grew up on the coastline, so beaches.
Okay. Favorite type of food?
Oh, jollof rice. I like jollof rice. So.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Current hobby?
I'll say running. Running is a big thing. I do run a lot.
And last question, what is your favorite type of music?
So I like I'm really open to I like reggae, a lot. So you get me on the Bob Marley, songs, but I'm really open to good music overall. I like the now the Afrobeats now as well. I listen to quite a bit. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for participating. That was great.
Appreciate it.
I feel like I always try to guess what the person is going to say, and it's never right. Lion wasn't what I expected. I'm like, oh, wow, lawyer? How often does it happen that what you wanted to be when you were a kid is what you are? That's so impressive. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you, Alidu. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time to share about your professional journey. I'm certain that the University of Florida Department of Sport Management, our students, our faculty, staff, alumni, everyone appreciates and really values what you shared today. We always end by telling our viewers and listeners to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our handle is @UFSPM, and we are your hosts, Jessica Francis
and Shelly Lyle. And
go Gators!